And we are live. Hello, everyone. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's Saturday. Oh, sorry, Saturday. It's a Sunday evening today for me at my place. It's 11 o'clock. Whatever time it is for you, welcome and thank you for taking your time to join up. I want to start today's stream by saying huge thanks to everyone that is present here and everyone is watching this channel, but a special thanks to the moderating team. As always, guys, I don't talk about this in videos, but I do talk about this every time we start a stream, about half of this channel, what it is, what are we doing, the fact that we can have civilized discussions, have civilized talks, and I can answer your questions. It is thanks to the moderating team. So please join me in saying huge thanks to everyone that is participating in the moderating team. They're doing an amazing job, and I'm very happy that they're by my side for all these years. So let's talk about today. Please ask your questions in the Q&A section. I will get to them as I complete this intro section, as always on this stream. So today's intro section is what about Russian economy, right? We've heard that it's not been doing quite well, but has been doing better, worse? And especially people have been stating and showing that the ruble is not doing that well. You can see it in a thumbnail. That supposedly ruble has crossed the 100. The $1 goes for over 100 rubles. So basically meaning that 1 cent can buy you over a ruble. This is, of course, terrible news, but not for the reasons that a lot of people think. Ruble is not. You're very quiet. I'm very quiet. Well, that is new. This has never happened before. Let me see if I have my correct microphone. It is indeed the correct microphone that has been added. I am not sure. I'm hearing you just fine. Volume is fine. You're fine. People say it's better now. I'm just gonna add a little bit of a boost in case it's been too low. Sorry for that. Oh wait, maybe I know. Wait, give me a second. Just half a second, and we'll see if this is gonna fix it. Well, firstly, if all of the people that are OG, just let me show you how microphone works. If you understand that reference, good for you. If you didn't understand the reference, then you might hear right now that I'm blowing your ears out. Yes, there we go. So now it should be relatively okay. So what happened is I have essentially the software for this microphone, and every time I restart Windows, I need to relaunch that software because for some reason when it launches automatically, it crashes. So I need to close the program and then start it again, and only then it applies the proper sound filtering, so to say, for the sound. All right, we're starting once again, this time with good audio. But yes, coming back to the ruble, why 100 rubles is a sort of a big deal? Well, it's a big deal exclusively as a moral thing. Like it's a thing of perception, the psychological pressure that it does on the Russian population. Because Russian ruble is not freely convertible currency. Russian government basically controls the ruble, but they are kind of trying to control it not like the Soviets did, where they would set, okay, 1 Russian ruble equals $1. This is how we're exchanging, and this is how it's going to be. But they're trying to play this semi-pretend game where they are looking at the actual ratio that is kind of representative on some of the markets that are trading currencies, and they're trying to derive what it can approximately be. So what we need to understand is the ratio that the Russian ruble is to the dollar is completely manually controlled. It is not a freely tradable currency. The recent increase in the Russian ruble, for why it's been going up, is because there was a lack of certain sanctions going against some of the Chinese companies lately. And some of the Chinese companies have been reporting that they have found a way on how to get certain goods imported in Russia, even sanctions goods. And especially because now with Donald Trump taking over, some of the Chinese companies feel that Donald Trump will not be prosecuting them for violating these sanction policies. So it's expected basically that Donald Trump will lift certain restrictions. And in that perspective, because Russia started to import more, they are now being a little bit more. They're getting a little bit more benefit with the weaker ruble, essentially. So that's the ruble. So it's a fake currency that has no real value, that is being manually controlled by the Russian central bank. So that's like probably the lowest of the indicators that we should be following for. But if it makes you feel good, just know that it's a great indicator to show that yes, indeed, Russian economy is not doing that well. A much better problems of economy is what we've heard recently, is the Russian market problems that they're having. On their employment market, the recent reports have shown that some of the biggest Russian companies that are manufacturing, and we're talking manufacturing of a lot of things like both food produce, also like some metal produce and other things that are not directly related to the government. On a lot of these market players, they are struggling with over 30% lack of workforce. I repeat this, they are not able to find over 30% of workforce to cover their needs. So when we're talking about Russia potentially having infinite amount of manpower, we need to understand that that manpower is coming from somewhere. So every time they pull a worker off of a production line to put it in the trenches in Ukraine, that worker stops producing value for Russia. And because Russian military is advertising and mostly is driven by the money, so they're offering in ludicrously high amounts for people that are going for the contract force to go and serve in the Russian military and go and kill Ukrainians. They're paying huge amounts comparatively to the market. And because market cannot really compete with that, they're having trouble getting their workforce. So while Russian military can continue getting in certain manpower into the trenches, that comes at significant cost, and a lot of companies are saying that that cost is completely unsustainable. Beyond that, we talked about the two bad options that Russia has. There has been a conflict in Russia between the head of the Russian central bank and her desire to control inflation, at least the parts of inflation that she can control, because she cannot really control government run agencies, where the bulk of the inflation are created, because like they are not market companies, they're companies that are run by the government. So when they say that for example, we're producing tank and this tank will cost us this much, that's what it's going to cost, and no market forces can actually influence this. So what she's trying to do is she's trying to put put the interest rate on any kind of loans for companies higher up to reduce the pressure, not reduce the pressure economy, but to cool down the economy, to make sure that the economy is slower. That unfortunately is seemingly hitting the top values that they can reach. At this point, pretty much no market enterprise can really work. Right now, the interest rate is, I believe, 21%. and they were actually supposed to have a meeting for the further increase of that interest rate on the 20th of December, if I'm not wrong. However, recent couple of weeks, the weekly inflation in Russia has been showing some wild numbers. Like I believe it was like 0.2% last week, and then it was almost 0.3% a week before, weekly inflation, and it's like cumulative. So it's like some ludicrous numbers, like absolutely insane numbers. And because the the inflation rates have been showing these insane numbers, the Russian central bank has actually issued essentially almost sort of a state of emergency. And it seems that they might raise that interest rate higher even beforehand. The problem, obviously, with that is the criticism that the Russian central bank president Nabiullina received from a lot of the other Z patriots, from all of the other Russian war criminals that are running the country, is that this unfortunately destroys the economy. That this not just cools the economy, it creates a situation where there is Stockflation, where there is like a very, very slow economy that cannot really grow, plus high inflation rates. So you get like the worst of both worlds. So there has been significant push to go against the plan of the Russian central bank, and instead propose to let's let the interest rate go back down. Let's accept the hyperinflation that will come out of this, because the high interest rates is what able to control the inflation. So if they would lower it down, let's say to 10%, most probably Russia will instantly experience a huge hyperinflation going through the roof. And that is kind of like what they said, that like hyperinflation, non-hyperinflation, well, it's going to be problematic. We have what to do. Let's just roll with this. And that was the two scenarios that we talked about. It seems that in recent weeks, a third scenario has been making really huge headways. And this scenario is amazing, is glorious. At least that's how it's been discussed in the Russian narrative. So this scenario implies that you both lower the interest rates, but also you do not get hyperinflation. And you might ask, well, it's like that's not how it works. Like if you lower the interest rates, you just kind of explode all of the inflation. So everything that people were investing in their long-term loans, like trying to save up money because like the money would grow exponentially, they would just instantly take it out because money would start losing value, right? Well, yes, if you can, because the plan of the Russians is, so let's do it this way. Let's hike up the interest rate extremely, extremely high, maybe like 30% high. So all of the people and businesses and whatever, they throw their money into their savings accounts and do investment accounts, where that money is supposed to, like into bonds and so on, where that money is supposed to make profits. And then we lock them up. So we lock people's investments. Instead of that, to the investments, we issue forced government bonds with essentially payout time of 30 years. So instead of the money on their accounts, people get nothing, and they get like a promise that the government will pay those loans in 30 years back. And then we lower the rate. I think it's genius. It's genius plan. So the plan, again, shortly, hike the interest rate so people put all of the money in the banks, take that money away from people, lock it up, and don't allow people to use it with the promise that they're going to pay it back in like 30 years, and then lower the interest rate. Genius plan. Absolutely incredible. Now, it can work, right? Because that plan relies very heavily on the fact that people that are working with Russian banks essentially have no other options. And, well, some of it, but some of it not. it obviously kills any kind of investment drive into Russia. I mean, unless people are really wild. And the only thing that it would require is essentially for people of Russia to eat it up. And that's kind of the only thing. So, as I said before in multiple times, that while the economies are, and the Russian economy, where it's going, is really, really dark and grim, the fact that they just can like steal the money of the people, like, and it's like it's being actively discussed as like, hey, why don't we just steal the money of the people? And they're like, yeah, sure, let's consider that. If it's still being considered, as I say, there is still a lot of resilience in the Russian economy. Amazing. So that's the Russian plan. It's a third scenario, and it seems that this scenario might be likely because something similar was already done, but with the foreign investments. So in investments in a foreign currency after the 2022 February 24th, when the foreign companies try to get the money out of the Russian economy, instead Russia froze those foreign investments and didn't let them take the money out of Russia. And then they had to find weird ways on how to get their money back. So that's the Russian economy status. And another, so I talked about the workforce. I talked about how Russian economy is doing. And the third thing about the Russian economy that you might be very curious about is the debts. So we know that Russia is having a bit of an issue because they are running low on stocks. So they're trying to sell Russian bonds with huge interest rates on those bonds to make sure like that people will like start investing into Russian economy. Well, we found out with some of the latest data that it turns out that payments on interest on already issued bonds in Russia is higher than what Russia is selling, what Russia is getting by selling new bonds. Again, so the amount of essentially promised debt that Russia has given out just to pay interest on that debt is costing Russia more money than it is raising to cover debt. So Russia is raising new bonds and it's not even covering the interest of previously raised bonds. Glorious, amazing. What an economy. Absolutely marvelous economy. Just incredible. Yes. So that's what I'm saying. So the silver lining after this whole tirade that I just gave you is that Russian economy is in deep trouble. It's very fragile. It's extremely fragile. They're pulling all of the strings they can to basically balance it out on a knife's edge. If the pressure on Russia will keep going as it's been going before, all of this will just blow out and collapse in a very spectacular way in a relatively short time frame. So I still truly feel that everyone is really hoping that Trump is going to come in and remove all of the sanctions, and then the Russian economy will just normalize, and then it's going to be great. So that's the state of the Russian economy. I hope it's been enlightened. It's absolutely incredible. Every time I read about it, it's just beautiful. The only thing that I would wish, as I say, from the sanctions, I would wish the European Union and United Kingdom would get their shit together and start actually prosecuting people that are violating the sanctions. All right, let's get to the questions. I see some questions that you wrote already. Average Al, I heard about on BBC radio that some EU countries have donated more F-16s, but that's what's... oh, sorry, the question ran away. I cannot see. Yeah, I've heard as well that some of the F-16s have been donated, but again, I don't really know any details on that one as well. Then there was the question after that. That question is also, I cannot like, sorry, YouTube is a bit weird. So when the questions go like up, I just cannot scroll up fully. So sorry for those two questions that I missed it. For the super chats, thank you so much for donating. people on the last campaign for the Ukrainian armed forces. We're in works now for the new campaign that we're going to do. It's going to be massively new, incredible. We're hoping for all of the best. But I want to say a huge thanks to John Holster for being a brother in arms. H. Saury, thank you so much for being a member for 2 months. I'm surprised that it's only been 2 months. It feels like I know your name from so long already. Nathaniel, hello G. I wanted to ask, Russia's artillery stocks really struggling, and would that include APCs? Because as far as I know, Russia is struggling with APCs more. The best one, if you want to know a little bit of like calculations, is to look at to cover Cabal. Like he is very good because he dissects, like he's here on YouTube, just write covered Cabal. He's pretty good to dissect very, very briefly a lot of the OSINT data analysts that are counting the number of vehicles. I really recommend him. He's pretty good. Otherwise, I can maybe share. I can share you a link to the Excel spreadsheet. So from the OSINT analysts, yes, from the OSINT analysts that are actually counting things. So I'm gonna post a link to in chat to this this Google Doc spreadsheet where the OSINT analysts are counting the Russian vehicles. And what you need to know from that spreadsheet is basically the column worse. Like I'm actually going to just show you, like, so you know what I'm talking about. Give me a second. So this is the Excel spreadsheet. I'm covering a little bit by my beautiful head. So let's move it here. So in this spreadsheet, what you need to know is that the column worse is pretty much garbage. Like there's nothing there. Like column worse in tanks, IFVs, APCs, artillery, everywhere like that where it's worse, that's absolute garbage. Like it's not useful pretty much. Poor means that it's gonna take a long time for Russia to get it fielded. So you can roughly estimate that it's gonna be almost double the time from whatever decent Russia was having. So if beforehand all of the previous years Russia was pulling from the decent column, they are now going to be pulling from the poor column, the vehicles and infantry vehicles and tanks. And while there is still some stocks left in those, like for example 1,700 tanks, it's still going to take almost double the time for Russia and double the effort to get that vehicle operational compared to before. So that's the rule of a thumb, so to say. So use that and follow Cover Cabal. Really recommend it. It's pretty good. Yes. All right. Okay. Let me see. Simp is writing, I am getting seduced by the music. Good to be you. Awesome HPT, is it Ruble or Rubble? Hopefully Rubble soon. It wasn't me. Georgies, are there any news about North Koreans, especially about the question if more of them will be coming to Russia or Ukraine? Thank you so much for your work. Yes, there are news on North Koreans. They have been engaged in some of the combats with Ukrainian armed forces. There are confirmed casualties on their sides. So far, it is expected that North Korea will roughly send 10,000 troops to Russia every month. So right now, the expectations are and rumors are that it's going to be about 100,000 North Korean troops that is going to be sent in 2025. Plus, if for people that are trying to gaslight you and say, well, North Korean troops are not really escalation because technically they are in a defensive alliance and they are just fighting on the Russian-controlled territory in Kursk, that is not true. North Korean troops have already been spotted moving around and coming into training in Mariupol, the Ukrainian Mariupol, the city of Mariupol in Ukraine. So they already crossed the border Ukraine. They are already an invasion force. So yes, it is a invasion aggressive force. It's not some kind of a defensive war. Like, firstly, it doesn't make sense, but just to kind of put a big fat dot to anyone that tried to tell you otherwise. Denis Kasyan, I remember you mentioned a while back about the war chest that Russia set up to help fund the war. I know hundreds of billions got frozen, but around the world, how much Russia have left? So by mid of last year, the estimate was that Russia has approximately 50 billion of funds left in the war chest. Of that 50 billion, around half is gold. So essentially, liquid assets were like about 25, 30 billion that Russia could easily get. The rest was really problematic and so on. So by the start of this year, it's expectation that Russia will run, and it's pretty much like people are saying that Russia almost completely run out of the war chest. So by the end of the first quarter of 2025, Russia will be left only with essentially semi-liquid assets that Russia will have to jump through hoops to try to sell to get the amounts that they want. It means that their war chest is pretty much empty. What is the current sum of donations? We have completed our campaign. I believe the total sum of donations was over 105 thousand euros. No, it's 104,430 euros. Our campaign, it was great. If you want to participate in some campaign before the next one on ours, right now Jake Bro is running his one more campaign for $1 million, so you can participate in that one. As you know, like I'm a big friend with Jake. Jake is an amazing guy. Love him very much. Artur Rehi, recommend him all too much. Artur Rehi, a really cool guy. I was pleasantly surprised. Like for me, I always thought that he would be a bit more, kind of colder. I don't know, like I didn't feel that I would connect with him so easily, but as we saw each other, it just flowed naturally. I think he's amazingly cool. I loved being at his place, and we had an amazing conversation. He's a very nice guy. So Artur is pretty cool. If you haven't seen our interview, we had an interview on Artur Rehi's podcast channel. That was pretty nice. So check that out. We laughed for an hour about weird shit. So it's pretty cool. How bad can it get for Russian economy? 40 USA dollars for eggs in Russia. Yeah, quite well. I believe right now the inflation on eggs was no, it's like wait, the highest inflated product right now in Russia, I believe, was onions. And right now, onions was something like 70% inflation or something, and approximately. Like, don't quote me on that, but I remember it was like in tens of percentage points. Like it was in ludicrous amounts. So some of the produce is extremely expensive. So the problem of the Russian economy, specifically, like if we're talking about the food economy, is that Russian economy doesn't run throughout the year. So they are extremely dependent on their crops and the crop rotations. And they had issued this spring that a lot of their crops, because of the way that the season changed, so it kind of became warmer, then it got what is called the oh my god, the frost blaze it's called, or something like like a something where it's like getting cold very frost snap. There's like frost snap. Yeah, there we go. So and then suddenly it became really cold, and then some of the produce got destroyed, and they had really poor performance for their crops. And they have been dependent on a lot of these rotating crops, and these rotating crops have been getting more and more expensive once the season have been going out. So now they're having huge problems with onions, for example. Okay. Werloga1. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. What is the name of the screen recording software you use to annotate maps? It's just what I need for presentation. I'm preparing for school. Thanks in advance. I use, it's called Painty. Painty, like paint and Y at the end. It's a Chrome add-on. It wasn't me. Georgie, is there a reason why you are always doing your live streams that late? You and my time. No complaints, just interested. Yeah, because like when it's during the day, I'm doing other things. And only by the late evening, I have the time to do something. And oftentimes around, like if I try to do something around 6, 7 and so on, there would be a lot of other people streaming, doing stuff. So I try to kind of give you guys some space, so you're always welcome to join up my stream and I don't know, talk trash about my hat. Kaimo, when will the toilet paper be worth more than Rubble? I think Rubble is already worth about the same as toilet paper. Remo, is that Artur Rechi hat? It absolutely is. Love you both. Absolutely. Huge love to Artur. Emmanuel Yale, this war is badly affecting us with a worsened economy, so why should the NATO allow a lot of Ukrainians to die without fully helping Ukraine, but rather dragging the war? Are they afraid of Putin? Yeah, you pretty much answered this. Like, I mean, this has been my complaint on in all times. Guys, what we don't understand is like we're barely helping Ukraine, right? The amount of money that we've dedicated, and I'm talking like from Denmark. Denmark is the #1 country that is per capita, essentially per personal income, that has dedicated to Ukraine. So of all of my taxes, the biggest share of those taxes was sent to help Ukraine. So I firsthand know that we are helping relatively low comparatively. And that has been pretty much the case, that so far we've been very, very slow in helping Ukraine. It's been literally drip feeding, trying to put pressure on Putin, trying to put him into some kind of a negotiating table. This is Russian nukes at work. You ask me like how Russia is using nukes. This is how Russia is using nuke. The whole point for Putin is not to use nukes, like because using a nuclear weapon doesn't achieve him anything. Whereas the threat of nuclear weapon, you see, is allowing him to almost dictate and scare some of our politicians shitless just to make sure that he can get his point across. That is nuclear weapons of Russia working. Art McTaggart, Georgie, can ordinary people visit Ukraine? Yes. I would like to go next year and show some solidarity. Yes, but please, please, if you go to Ukraine, be aware that this is not a tourist destination. It is still a war zone. I want you to repeat this. Like, while you can go, it's fine. And like the western parts of Ukraine are relatively safe. Like getting hit by missile is less chance of that than comparatively being struck by a car with a drunk driver or something. But still, it is still a war zone. So please be aware of that. No one likes us talking broadcasting. Do you think Ukraine will get more Bradleys anytime soon? Yes, it's been getting more equipment, including, I believe, some of the Bradleys. Bonus Peter Familia. So with Bradleys, it's kind of interesting because what's happening is they don't show like every package. They're not showing how many Bradleys they're sending. But there are some open source analysts that are following the total numbers of, because they are updating the total numbers of delivered equipment. So essentially, before the package, they said total delivered Bradleys like 400, and then after the package, the total number delivered Bradleys was like 470. And then it's like, you don't really need to be like super smart or like excellent in statistical analysis to understand that probably there was 70 Bradleys in that package. As an example. Bonus pater familias. Hi, we all see attacks on civilians, on hospitals, schools, and so on. Surrendering Ukrainians are executed. Russian war crimes are common. What will it take for the West to go all in and stop the Russian wall? To have political will. That's the only thing that has been missing. Like, that is the only thing that has been missing. Because, listen, like, every time they will tell you the same things. If we do this, it will be escalation, and we're going to engage directly with Russia at a nuclear war. Every time. But I can guarantee you that if United States, Europe, European allies, whoever else, NATO alliance, for example, closes the skies and starts shooting down Russian drones and Russian missiles, nothing is going to happen. If Western allies are going to bring in forces to the battlefield and put them, like, for example, to defend against Moldova or any kind of incursion from Belarus, nothing will happen. Nothing will change. There is not going to be any kind of... But it's our own fears. It's the fears that are Putin and Russian shills are selling us. And you oftentimes are believing into, because I know that you believe too, maybe not you specifically as a person, but about a large portion of you, the viewers that are watching me, because I constantly get emails. Georgie, how dangerous it is. Do you think the nuclear threat, the nuclear war can start? I get those mails daily. And I'm pretty sure that those are coming from my viewers that are going to listen to this. They're going to listen to the words that I say right now. And then they're going to be like, oh, wow, so this time it's fine. But then Putin is going to try to nuclear threat once again. And they're going to write me the new message once again. It's all in our head. All in our head. Like, just recently, remember how much you been gaslighted for stating, oh wow, if we allow Russia to be struck by long range, which are actually not long range, but let's not delve too much into depth. It's like, if we allow Ukraine to strike Russia with longer range missiles onto the Russian targets, it's going to be escalation. And as Olaf Scholz said, it's going to be counted as a direct involvement of NATO against the war in Russia. So we will be in direct conflict and direct war with Russia. We can never allow that. Therefore, we should not allow strikes in Russia. I can't find escalation. Can't find. Haven't seen escalation anywhere. If you see it, tell me. Michael Pearson, it looks like the economy is in death spiral. Yes, things like this one started culminating rapidly. How soon? By Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter? No, I think at least 2 years of Russian economy is still there. Like, especially if they're now discussing that they literally just want to like take all of the money and all of the savings from Russian population. That is a lot of money. That is a lot of money that is privately owned by Russia. Essentially, they want to nationalize the private savings. That is still a lot of money that can give significant boost to Russian economy. But that is not forever. Like, their model right now is not sustainable. So even if, for example, Ukraine will not surrender, right? Let's take this scenario, right? Everyone is afraid that Donald Trump will stop sending weapons to Ukraine. It's going to be terrible. The loss of Ukrainian lives will be stupendous. It will be the betrayal of NATO allies, because like it will, like, believe me, like I'm from the Baltics, but I can guarantee you that if Trump will stop supplying weapons to Ukraine, it's going to send a very strong signal to the NATO allies in Poland and Baltics and so on. Now, I'm not saying that Trump will not do it. Like, it's his decisions, that he's unpredictable. That's the only thing we can say about him. So, but one thing is going to be very clear, that NATO allies will need to be absolutely dependent on themselves, that US should not be considered like this trusted ally. And it's going to spoil a lot of relationship between Poland and US, Baltics and US, and so on. And there's going to be a lot of consolidation around Ukraine. Poland and the Baltics will never stop supporting Ukraine. Never. Never, 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 never. And I'm pretty sure Nordics will not stop as well. Nordics are very dedicated. So there is a strong coalition that will support Ukraine no matter what. And some of the countries are pretty rich. And Ukraine will continue fighting, because the whole idea is misunderstanding. It's derived from the from the US exceptionalism, because I truly believe that a lot of people in US think that if we will not give Ukraine weapons, Ukrainians will stop fighting, either because they think it's a proxy war by US or something else, or they believe the Russian propaganda that supposedly Ukraine is a puppet regime to United States. But it's not the case. The situation is completely on its head. It's Ukrainians that are fighting, and everyone else is just supporting them in their fight. So if Ukraine will be left alone, they will, well, not alone. I'm talking about still Baltics and other countries that will never leave Ukraine. So if Ukraine will be left alone only with their trusted allies and continue fighting Russia, they will lose a lot more territory. They will lose a lot more men. But for Russia, it will not stop their death spiral. Their economy is truly in a death spiral. And while they can buy themselves like maybe a year, 2 years more, and so on, their economy is literally like almost crushing. They are pulling all of the strings they can. And we need to understand that even without the sanctions, like even if you remove the sanctions or some of the sanctions, I still pretty much think that it's possible to convince the Trump apparatus that potentially lifting the sanctions off of China trading with Russia would be strengthening China. So there is like a little bit of a pressure that can be put there, which Russia would really love. But if that is not there, then still the biggest problem of the Russian economy is war. There is 3 things that Russia need to wage war. It is money, money, and money. And that money is running out. Don't you think the Russian will go completely black economy? I hear you can get something for 200,000 rubles for 500 on the street, which is like a black market of 400 to once. Yeah. It's like all of these are products of bad economy, right? The fact that you can get some kind of a deal and so on, that's not the indicators. So the fact that is happening, it just shows that there is a huge disbalance in perception and numbers that are being put on paper to, for example, World Bank. Jonathan Tao, Georgia, what is the likelihood Russia will be forced to allow hyperinflation and stagflation worsens? The chances are pretty high. So far, it seems that they given the head of the Russian central banks, Nabiulina, another chance. I've talked about it last time, saying that there was very, very strong attacks from basically number 2 person in Russia right now, and he stated that we should fire the head of the central bank and remove that stupid policy of setting the interest rate. But it seems that there has been like still some push to keep that policy going, but we don't know for how long. It still feels that if there's not going to be any results, Russia quite likely will go either in hyperinflation or they will confiscate the savings. Kelendan, if Trump lifts sanctions, Europe needs to sanction the US companies, but the policy willpower balls. Your thoughts? You will not sanction US. There is no politician that have balls in Europe to do that. Levi Aitchinson, seeing how the Russian economy is already suffering, how far is the future? Do you see the economic issues crossing dangerous levels for the people of Moscow? It's hard to know. I mean, like, if they confiscate savings, people of Moscow gonna feel it. Because let me get you very straight, right? So while the workers, like, maybe going for the military from the regions of Russia, those are people that are living, like, from salary to salary. Those people probably didn't see big enough savings in their account. No. When we're talking about Russia taking over the savings of private people, those will be the Muscovites, because they have the savings. Is it possible for Sweden and Denmark to close the Baltic Sea for Russia? And if they can, why they don't? Yes, it is possible. It has been discussed. It hasn't been done because Sweden and Denmark are afraid from hybrid warfare. They're essentially afraid that Russia will sabotage all oil pipes, that there's going to be pollution in the Baltic Sea. They're going to pollute all of the waters with oil, that they're going to cut the cables, and so on and so on and so on. And Russia already has been making these threats. So they're not doing it because of that. Michael L., when will Russian economic contractors affect military supplies? When will Russia's economic contraction affect military supplies to the front? Not very soon. Like, we need to understand that Russia is working for the war, right? So whatever needs to go to war is like it's the first row of expense. But already now we see some of the influence, right? I've talked about this recently, that the payments to the soldiers that received wounds have now been decreased, I believe 17-fold. Like for if before, like if you got a light wound, now you get paid essentially 17-fold less, and you only get the same amount if it's like a serious wound. For example, you lose like a leg or something. So it's already happening. They're not cutting the premiums for wounds to the Russian soldiers because they're having it so good. They're cutting it because they're trying to save some money. Why are the Russians taking land after now then at the why are the Russians taking land after now then at the start of the what? Epic Gamer Man 69. Wow, what a name. I'm pretty sure like very, very close to the question I'm about to ask. So Epic Gamer Man 69 asks, why are the Russians taking land after now then at the start of the year question mark? So, Mr. Epic Gamer 69. So, what the question basically is, who is winning, and so on. So, Russia is taking the land because they have the resources and the ability to do so. Ukraine has less resources and they have less ability to resist the Russian offensive. Because Russia has more offensive capabilities than Ukraine has defensive capabilities, Russia is taking the land. Potentially, you wanted to ask why is Russia taking land faster than it did at the start of the year? That at the start of the year, the potentially their tempo was lower. Well, first and foremost, the main point is the aviation bombs. The aviation bombs that Russia has been developing during this year have really came to shine, and Russia changed the use of their aviation bombs. Now Russian aviation bombs are really big problem for major Ukrainian defensive positions. Basically, once a 2-ton bomb or like 1.5-ton bomb of explosives drops on any kind of bunker, they're usually just as a big ball in the ground. There is no more bunker. And it's a bit problematic to defend that position when there is no bunker, so to say. Let's put it this way. Chris Salsa, how long do you think it will be before the Western Alliance will send boots on the ground? It can vary. It can vary. I truly believe that if Putin will come again close towards Kyiv, I think that's going to be like a big decision moment for a lot of the forces, because that's going to be basically a question mark whether the allies should participate while the war is still in Ukraine, or they should be just waiting essentially for Russia to come knocking. Are we going to see a major Ukrainian offensive before the winter? No, not a chance. Ukraine is in defensive. Ukraine is in defensive posture. They are considering potential for offensive, but it's pure rumors. There is nothing that suggested. So maybe I shouldn't like say like, because like I instantly like I tried to think like major offensive like 2023 counteroffensive, like a whole front line. No, that one I don't expect. Maybe something similar to Kursk. If Ukrainians will find a weak spot in the Russian defenses, maybe that way. But not otherwise. Jack Sparrow asks, I hate how the Western media obsessed with how much territory Russia has regained from Ukraine and Kursk. Surely they should be focused on why it takes Russia so long, basically do that jack shit. Yeah, I know they also are wrong, because what they're doing, like, I know the articles that you're talking about. So what these fools did is that they counted all of the territory, including the gray areas, where like there was not like even fully confirmed Ukrainian presence. and they've counted everything of that area. So then they're like, oh, Russians have appeared in this gray area. There's been footage of Russians in gray area. Then in their brain is like, oh, therefore Russians control that area, right? For them, the concept of gray areas doesn't exist at all. So they just kind of retracted all of the gray areas and only kept like the territory that Ukraine supposedly controlled in core. If we put like just the core territory of Ukrainian controlled, what they controlled and what they lost comparatively, then since the culmination of the Kursk offensive, Ukraine has lost maybe 30 square kilometers-ish of the territory that has been confirmed controlled by Ukraine that they lost. Everything else was a gray zone. And what these guys in the articles, they counted like all of the gray zone areas, like, oh, this was controlled by Ukraine. Oh, we're just going to count everything. Oh, now Ukraine doesn't control that. Therefore, Russia has regained these hundreds, thousands, and so on. It's wild. It's really wild. Like, I cannot really understand it. It's like 3 years, the biggest war in Europe, and you cannot get like one guy. Why me, a guy on the fucking main job that is working, doing this for a hobby? Why do I know more? Why don't you, a professional journalist, have a guy that's going to cover the biggest war in Europe and actually know what they're talking about? It's absolutely ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's just, and I mean, I can bitch around media for so long, so I'm not gonna bother. Oh, that's the troops. Canada. Does Canada stand to date? How does Canada stand to date on assistance to Ukraine? Let me open the Kiel Institute. So there is this Kiel Institute data hub. I will show you again something for you to consider. So there is this website. It's called Kiel Institute for the World Economy. I'm going to leave you the link in chat so you have it. So that's the Kiel Institute for World Economy. Then here you can have Data Hub. You open the Data Hub and there is Ukraine Support Tracker. You click the Ukraine Support Tracker, and this is a whole institute that tracks the promised and delivered help to Ukraine. And they do it by country. So here we see countries by percentage of GDP. So if we see Czechia, Croatia, Canada. So Canada has delivered about 0.4% of their GDP as assistance to Ukraine. So almost reaching about half a percentage point of GDP for all time. Like so from January 2024 to August 2024. So that's like 2 years. So it's like what, like 0.2% per year, something like that. There we go. There we go. Impressed. 0.4 is higher than I thought. Yeah, that's higher than some, for sure. By the way, a lot of the AMRAPs from Rochelle were purchased, not donated, by the way, just so you know. A lot of the AMRAPs from Rochelle have been purchased by Ukraine and not donated. Very different things. Please do not confuse. Edgar T. Impact on recent damages on cables on Baltic Sea. How can NATO EU guard the infrastructure? They can't. That's why they're not closing the Baltic Sea for Russia. That's exactly the point. Average Al, moderation of this chat is great. How much do you moderate the comments? There is a lot of pro-Russian terrorist comments sometimes. No, we have zero tolerance. Like sometimes moderators play with their food and they just keep them around. But we have zero interest in communicating, feeding the trolls and so on, because the productivity of that is close to zero. So the only reason if you might see like a sparse comment is either A, we didn't notice it yet, or B, some of the moderators decide what to do with the guy. How can they fool around with them? So that's kind of the logic. KGB asks, KBG asks, do you think we will ever reach a stalemate, so to speak, similar to the one in 2023? Was there a stalemate in 2023? So, okay. If you just follow this war on the map, then it might feel that it is a stalemate or there was a stalemate. There was never a stalemate, right? The fact that you might be following the map and looking as like, oh, map doesn't move left, map doesn't move right, therefore stalemate, you don't understand this war. You just don't. There was never a stalemate. There was inability of one side to push past the defenses of the other, so they were trying to do that in any way they could. That is not a stalemate. That is just working on the enemy defenses. Oftentimes, changes on the battlefield, as we see this time for Russia, accumulate over time. They tried for over half a year to break Ukrainian defenses, and they couldn't. But they eroded the defenses, they improved their tactics, they took a lot of Wagner, they accepted a higher ratio of losses on their sides, so they implied a lot of the meat wave attacks rather than what they did before. Plus, they introduced the aerial bombs, and that allowed to move against the positions that got eroded over time. Arctic Dread, when Russia implodes, it's going to happen like USSR and more oblast will seek independence. What do you think? I don't care. I don't care what happens to Russia when it implodes. We're here to make sure that there is a just peace so we can have more than 70 years of prosperity in Europe once again, as we did before. Maybe not just Europe, maybe the whole world. Because right now there is this axis of evil that is pushing on all of the normative, democratic and lawful norms of our established world. And they want to reduce this world to, reduce this type of governance to ash and return us all back to the age of empires, where the might made right, and where if you were part of the weaker state, well, you should start counting prayers because you're just food for the bigger state, bigger power. And we would return to the times where fighting your neighbors were just maybe half a decade half of decade of every decade. That's not what I want. That's not what I want for my children. That's what I want to leave as a legacy. That's why the call to put the dictators that are showing their ugly heads once again, put them back into their place by being strong and forceful and resourceful and help Ukraine win. This is what I feel about Ukraine, and this is what I feel we need to do. Should the Nordics send lots of winter clothing to Ukrainian soldiers in preparation for December, February? I appreciate the work you're doing. No, Levy, it's been quite okay with supplies of equipment. I've been hearing pretty okay things from how the Ukrainian troops are equipped with regards to clothing. There are obviously like certain things that could be better, like for example, like the boots that are being issued are sometimes not the best. They would like to have, for example, more pairs of socks or more pairs of underpants, because, you know, like when you spend 2 months in a trench, you don't really have that much time to change or wash your clothes, so it would be more beneficial. So in that sense, we could help, but not like as a primary uniform. It's like a secondary helm that we could do. Veli Bustib, why is India not sanctioned for counting to trade with Russia? Some companies that are working with Russia in India have been sanctioned. Since then, India has been kind of lowering their interaction. They still do a lot, but it's not nearly as egregious as it was before. Is Putin dying? No. Well, I mean, we all are dying, technically. Technically, you are dying as well. So every one of us is technically dying. Cricket XI, Putin lost the plot completely. Isn't there a threat that is an economic collapse, a static war, attacks inside Russia? He'll just think, fuck it, and do something horrific. So, Cricket, I don't think Putin is irrational. So far, he hasn't shown himself to be irrational. His rationale is wrong, right? The way that he is perceiving the world, the way that he's perceiving a lot of things is wrong. But his rationale is ironclad, the way that he sees it. And it's not like completely wrong. Like it's wrong on many levels. Like he still doesn't understand Ukraine. He still believes that all of the Western powers are weak. But remember his position is like just wait long enough for your enemy to make mistakes. And he pulled through. It cost him a lot. It cost him an arm and a leg that he cut from his economy, from his manpower, for everything. But now look, Trump is now in US, and there is a window of opportunity opening up for him. So I cannot say that Putin has been irrational. That's the point. I think just the rationale is not the same rationale that you imagine or I imagine. I just think his rationale is wrong on many levels, but on many levels it's also correct. So he is understanding that the most valuable thing for Russia is himself. Putin is looking about number one, himself, the short midget. So for him, sacrificing Russian economy is fully rational. Sacrificing Russian future generations, absolutely rational. Sacrificing manpower, begging on the knees for the forces from North Korea, absolutely rational. Why? Because it preserves the number one. Yeah, it might take if you ask the question, because I'm reading a lot of these questions that have been asked. Maybe I'm reading the questions too slow. If I miss the question, just write it again. Maybe I'll get to it. Marino 4691. I heard it's being debated whether US will send JASM. Do you think they will be in Ukraine this year or starting next year? Well, I think the only way that they can be in Ukraine is only if Trump and his cabinet will decide to help Ukraine with weapons. I don't think Joe Biden has the balls to send it. Sorry. Tadas Boitsovas. Could the war be ended in 24 hours if US and rest of NATO said you have 24 hours to leave Ukraine or we will declare war on you? Yes, but also not a single one. Also, like doesn't need to be done, right? You don't need to do these public dances and so on. Just say we're going to start sending Ukraine more weapons. Just say it's like you need to get out because we're going to start significantly increasing Ukrainian capabilities. We have dictated to what Putin needs to be doing this war 0 times. 0. The only thing that our politician and our glorious leaders did is they came out on stage, they took Putin's dick out of their mouths, wiped their lips, and then they said, we are drawing a new red line for ourselves. We are not going to be supplying weapons that are shooting more than 120 kilometers to Ukraine. And after that, there's like commences about 4 or 5 months dance of everyone trying to convince our glorious leaders that this is the stupidest thing that they're doing. And instead, they shouldn't be doing that. And we do this dance every half a year, after which our glorious leaders go back into their cages. They unwillingly accept that maybe we should send these new capabilities to Ukraine. They sign it off as a least possible, with the least possible ability to do so, with certain restrictions or slow delivery times or some or no support. For example, the US did that, they provided weapons with no fucking technical support for them. And then they pick up the phone, and then there's Putin's dick sticking up of the phone, and they're like, oh, and then they stick the dick again on the Putin's dick for the next 3 months, after which the process repeats itself. We have dictated zero. The main point why I explained why Ukraine matters on this channel, and what I want is, I want us in Europe specifically, because I'm European, I cannot speak for United States. You have your own fucking problems, you deal with that. But at least us in Europe understand that we are one of the most economically powerful continents and groupings of countries in the world, period. We have nuclear capabilities, we have firepower capabilities, and we are allowing a midget from a country that can barely figure out how flushing toilet works to dictate and fearmonger our population. I want our politicians to take care of us, people in Europe, but not like we are children that we are scared of everything and nurture and helicopter parent us. No, but be actually protective of their children. Because right now, what they're stating is like, oh, guys, you're afraid, we are afraid as well, so we will do everything to make sure that we will not provoke this bear to come further into our house. And with every month past, that bear is coming closer and closer and closer. But the problem is, that is not a bear. It's a fucking chihuahua. It's a chihuahua that is just very, very loud and barking. And what I want us all is that our leaders, that's like state, is like, no, it's time for us to be strong. It's time for us to explain to Russia that we will not stand for them and for this bold-ass midget to threaten or even consider in his thought process for 1 second to threaten any of our people. And this, what I just said, is not anything that you hear from any of our politicians. Anyone. Everyone is just like, well, maybe Ukraine should give some territory to Russia. Maybe because like we're so weak and I don't know what we're gonna do and so on. And that's what pissing me off the most. That is why I'm continuously running this channel, and that's why I'm hoping we can get something done. That's why I'm hoping that we can do something. We should not be here trying to get donations to support Ukraine. It should have been already done. Ukraine should have had everything. Because we in Europe should say like, hey, Russia, what the fuck you think you're doing? Where do you think you're going? It's like we said, Europe, no more wars, okay? After Second World War, you sign up. What the fuck you think you're doing? But we're not doing that. We are sitting here and just running afraid of our own shadows. And that's the most important thing. That Putin, everyone sees that what Putin is. Like 95% of you here understands what I'm saying. 95%. Benjamin Martin, can Ukrainian drones target nuclear stations? Yes, but why? Like, there is no point of targeting nuclear stations? What? MiG-29, I share a household with conspiracy theories. Do you have any tips to stay calm at the diner table? Nope. Conspiracy theorists are... I have studied a bit about conspiracy theorists because I was fascinated. I was fascinated how people can believe shit that has nothing to do with reality. And one thing I learned is there is literally nothing that can convince them otherwise. Nothing. they can convince themselves, like the way that they're changing, but it's not happening over time and nothing is given. So you can keep throwing some facts, talks, initiate discussions, and so on, but you should never expect that the person will change his mind. So if you share a household with conspiracy theorists, I'm very sorry for you, man. But nothing that I've searched either from scientific journals or from popular media working with psychology of conspiracy theorists and so on, nothing has produced any kind of tangible results that would allow people to change their minds. I believe the only thing that worked was when the authority for them would state new facts. That's when they are allowed. So either that person needs to be introduced to some kind of new authority that he would listen to, or one of the authorities that he exists with the bubble with would need to change their minds. There's nothing we can do. That's how it is. That's the post-truth society we live in. There's literally just like a whole alternative reality that a lot of people live with. And you know what? You know what's the most problematic? It wasn't a problem before. You might ask, well, how it wasn't? Well, it wasn't a problem before because they were separated. Because they didn't exchange ideas. But because we're now living in an information age, suddenly these conspiracy theorists and so on, they start making organizations, cults, and so on. And they're creating alternative versions of realities that people willingly believe in. Because no one understands how to do fact-checking, and no one really wants to do fact-checking. I've seen some of the brightest minds believe things that are absolutely ludicrous. You can see a person like believing like that there was never like a moon landing, and yet he's, for example, a CEO of some big tech company or something. And that's the problem. That is always the problem. So it's a problem for us because it is spreading. And democracies thrive on facts. Democracies thrive when lies are not allowed to be spread. That's why I'm not for the freedom of speech fully. I am for freedom of expression, but I feel that the harmful speech, something that is absolutely, and this is going to trigger all of the Americans here because I know how it's important for you, but I truly believe that freedom of expression must be preserved. But if disinformation and twisting on facts and absolute lies are being told and twisting perspectives, they need to be prosecuted because they are a threat to democracy. I'm not stating that they need to be like put in jail or something like this, but at least we need to prevent those elements from spreading as much as possible, especially because right now a lot of these are very beneficial to algorithms because people believe all the weirdest shit that you can imagine. I don't know, ghosts, alternative medicine, all these faith healers, stuff like that. It's been all over the place, but with an accurate enough story, it suddenly becomes like super good. And what the researchers have shown all over the place is if a person believes one conspiracy theory, he's more and more inclined to believe the other conspiracy theories as well. And oftentimes, people believe even mutually exclusive conspiracy theories. KP, odd that bringing in a foreign nation troops to defend your soil has now been seen greenlit by Russia. Does that mean that they have no problem with foreign troops coming into Ukraine finally? This is the whole discussion. Have you played Stalker 2? No, I haven't played yet. Adrian Philip, hi Georgie, a long-time follower, was living in Canada until moving to Denmark in March. I'm a Romanian from Moldova. the part that did not get occupied by the USSR, and I'm so worried Moldova would be next. Yeah, but Adrian, Moldova elected a pro-EU government, so I would breathe out. I think the biggest threat has been avoided. MiG-29, can Trump be stopped by Senate or other American institutions? Maybe, not question to me. I'm decoupling more and more from US politics, because I'm stopping, because, like, let's put it this way. I explained a lot that, like, I'm not going to be treating US as a same ally as I was treating it at the Joe Biden. Because when US was Joe Biden or previous, like, conservative Republicans, it was the understanding that US is willing to preserve the status quo, the world that we live in. Like, they want to keep the alliance in Europe, they want to keep up NATO, and they want to promote democracy. Trump and his platform and a lot of his allies are openly running isolationist, radical policies. So with his office coming in, unless they will show themselves to be more towards conservative side that I showed before, but it doesn't look like by some of his nominations, I cannot in good faith treat US as an party that is interested in preserving our alliance. Therefore, in my further analysis and so on, I'm not making a lot of the expectations for US to do a lot. Is South Korea helping Ukraine more? Yes, there are certain talks that I've heard about, and I cannot share. Unfortunately, it wasn't shared anywhere by the Russians, so I'm not sharing about it. Remember, in this channel, I have the OPSEC, so unless there's something has been talked about by the Russian sources, I will not be talking about this. What about Romanian elections? I've heard that the far-right candidate didn't make it through. I haven't followed since. I haven't followed what's the results. I believe it was just the first round, wasn't it not? There is still a runoff round. So, correct me if I'm wrong on Romanian elections. I will read your comments. Like, I don't know much about it. Like, write it. Is Ukraine still using its oil pipelines from Russia to Europe? Yes, they're transitioning Russian gas and oil as per existing agreements. Do you know why Ukraine doesn't use balloons to lift and drop glide bombs? What? What is this? The movie, the cartoon Up? Fucking balloons. Jory, what's the answer? How does the war realistically end? Ukraine wins, Russia loses. Ian McAvoy, hi Georgie, has Ukraine got enough forces to open second deep incursion into Russia and land Belgorod into Kursk? They might. I hear about possibilities, but I cannot tell. I don't want to raise expectations for anything. MiG-29, do European economy have to make debts to strengthen their defense, or can there be economic growth in Europe then Trump ban immigration or harm the US economy in some way? So I'm going to skip the Trump part. I'm going to focus on the European part. We have prospered immensely by not spending enough on defense in Europe. I think we need to revamp how our budgets are balanced. I think more defense spending in Europe is absolutely coming. I am hopeful that we're going to set 4% minimum defense spending in Europe. Just me, why doesn't Ukraine develop the same heavy aviation bombs? Aviation supremacy. Average Al, are there any numbers about how many losses have been caused by different weapon types like camps and artillery? Probably yes, but it's also very messy. I haven't been studying this. Isaac Salas, if Russia agrees to a ceasefire, how long will it take for Russia to retreat? What? If Russia agreed to ceasefire, how long will it take for Russia to retreat? I think this is a fantasy question. It's not going to happen. Freedom Fighter 123. Where will the new mines be placed? Just in Kursk or hold the front line? It requires everywhere. Ukraine has run out of land mines a while ago. Carl Austin. Russian population support Ukrainian occupation, Ukrainian genocide. Russian population support Ukrainian occupation, Ukrainian genocide, always taxes support Putin soldiers. Do you think their well-being protected by the West, by USA is fair? No. Nian, do you know if Gripens can switch to French engines instead, since the US export blocking the Gripens for Ukraine due to the US engines? I'm not an aviation expert, don't know that much. Can try to find out if this will be interesting. Would be interesting to find out. Don't know. XY, how will Ukraine hold up with reduced or even without US assistance? Is Europe and allies up to the task? What's your opinion? If we raise our defense spending to 4%, yes. Do you see an attack on Putin's precious bridge? Or are they not going in an attack because there are resources protecting it? Bridge is not as relevant right now, mostly because Ukraine is in defense and that bridge has lost a lot of their values. That bridge is right now not a primary target for Ukraine. They should focus on striking more valuable targets. Unfortunately, the moment has been lost. MiG-29, I've heard Russia could cut Europe for raw materials for economy. Is my fear real? Europe has been very heavily decoupling from Russia, so Russia is not really in any kind of demanding position. Europe can sustain themselves without Russian resources. The people that say that they can't, they're lying to you. Konrad Kubash, hey, what do you think about Poland's support in case of pure military? It's been outstanding. Have they helped too low enough? A lot. If Ukraine should expect more from Poland, just like fighter jets and so on. I think they did a lot. I think they're incredible. I think it's expected that Ukrainians will ask for more. I think it's a little bit sad that some of the Poles take it as an offensive that Ukraine is asking for more because Ukraine is just asking to, well, stay alive. I'm sorry if for some of you it feels like you're done a lot and so on. It's just like, you know, they're grasping for straws here. They're trying to get their help from anywhere. So I'm just going to ask all of the Polish people to please don't be offended on Ukrainians asking for more help. They really need it. They're being killed every day. USA, France, UK, Canada. That's not a question. Ask question. Average Al, is it true that Ukraine has not used any troop mines against the Russian meat waves? Will that change now? Yes, Ukraine has been running very low on mines, including food mines. Anthony Poros, do you think that Donald Trump could actually be the best thing for Ukraine? No. I think Trump was deeply offended when Putin endorsed Kamala. Let me put it this way, there is no longer friends. Well, your opinion, man, it joins about 100,000 different opinions. You take 100,000, 100 Trump supporters, about 100 of them will have different opinion on everything. That's the one, how do you say, common thing about Trump is that no one really knows what he's up to and what he's going to do. Everyone has their own opinion and everyone has been like wrong at some point and so on. And the worst part about Trump supporters is that never acknowledge that they've been wrong. Derek Dickerson, do you think the newly found oil and gas reserves in Ukraine was a large parts war? No. Charlie Steve, do you think there will come a new Yevgeny Prigozhin? Maybe. Christian Carson, would it even possible that Denmark and Sweden close access in on Baltic Sea? It's possible if they will understand how to protect their assets. Jeremiah Jad, will European powers dare to enter the war with troops on the ground? Yes, if Russia will continue advancing Ukraine significantly. Carl Austin, Democratic USA and United Kingdom did not spare the civilians in Germany and Japan in Second World War. Do you think they will give such limits to Ukraine? You answered the question yourself. Stephen Nemo, the Rochelle armored trucks were also built brand new for Ukraine by Ukrainian Canadians, so they need to be paid something by the company, Toronto, Ontario, to build the armored Guardia. Yes, Stephen, I also talked with the owner of the Rochelle, the whole company and so on. I went to the United States Army Expo like a year ago, and I've talked actually with the Rochelle producer over there. I actually have the whole video. I should release the talks with me and him at some point. He's a pretty cool guy. I loved him. Record Man, has anyone? I actually reached out to Rochelle and asked if we can do a campaign for us, like to gather money for Rochelle truck from Ukraine Matters, but I think they kind of dismissed it. Has anyone calculated the cost per square kilometer so far in terms of rational casualties? Yes. There was some discussion about it. I don't remember from the top of my head. Kaimo, have you read Merkel's memoirs? I've read the excerpts and I've wrote already on my Blue Sky account. Join my Blue Sky account, please. follow me on Blue Sky account. Merkel's memoirs shows very clearly that she has learned nothing. She understood nothing of the errors that she did. She understand nothing about why everyone was telling her that she should not be putting Germany in such a big dependency on the Russian natural resources, and that she shouldn't build her whole economic model of dominating the whole European market on the fact that they're able to get cheap Russian gas. Now their whole economy is struggling, mostly because of the legacy of Merkel. Moreover, Merkel's actions for 15 years in power have been basically the main thing that I hate about politicians in our generations, is that they've gotten too complacent to do nothing. Merkel was the prime example of that. She came in, she did not enact any changes. She basically preserved the status quo with minor movements here and there, and that's about it. It's a disastrous program which left us with 15 years of absolutely untackled problems and absolute dog shit situation in Europe, especially when we're talking migrants, especially when we're talking our economy and costs of living. This is all thanks to the Merkel and the likes that have done jack shit for 15 years, and that's exactly why people are voting AFD. Not because they want to be pro-far right, pro-Nazi, but because the current political climate and the current political elites have been shit. XY, how will Ukraine hold up reduced or even... okay, I already read that question. We should take Putin money now because Putin will ask to get it back to Trump for his deal. Do you think we can do it in the next 2 months? What? I don't understand the question. Delman Jat, after how much damage to Ukrainian troops they leave their trenches and move backwards, and how many casualties Russia take every day, in months and wise, it varies. BC guy, you are so right, Georges. Canada has to do much more. Well, the truth is, everyone has to do much more, but everyone like for me, like the biggest, like the most obvious example of this is Olaf Scholz, because he said that phrase, and like that came out of Scholz's mouth. He stated that we in Germany should not do more, because if we do more, the others will be incited to do less. And that is the state of delusion that I feel a lot of our current political class are. Football is the best. 2287. Why is any show of strength or aggression seen by Western powers to be negative? I don't know. I really don't understand that. Dean Randall, do you know why Ukraine doesn't use balloons to lift the glide bombs? You already asked that question. It has been as silly as the first time you asked it. Joachim Johansson, another question, Georgie. As an old Cold War person, this Russia is Chihuahua compared to the Soviets, and is so agree that our politicians have no balls, not like with them. Yes, exactly. That's why I'm like advocating, like I'm trying to formulate it somehow, like how I'm feeling, but it's something sort of like a radical centrism, because I feel our system is good. Like I feel our system is generally like can be efficient. Like I don't feel that we should fall into the far right or far left camps to try to absolutely, break down and remove the system. I just think that a lot of our politicians have become complacent, and they are actively evading taking any responsibilities or any actions that would make that system work. So I feel that we require just like people that will actually do the work and require them to do so. So that's going to be probably, if we're going to do some kind of a political activity in Europe, then this is probably going to be like something that's we centered on. We need actions. We need solutions for problems. And our politicians have been so complacent to just every time something comes up, they just stumble upon the first couple of levels of bureaucracy, and that's it. And they said, well, we cannot do this because there's bureaucracy, and that's why we cannot do it. Instead of like overcoming or rebuilding and making sure that it works. Severe spine deficiency, yes, true. KP, Australia just tried to pass some legislation and failed. Misinformation and disinformation. True. Canada, could the cold living countries help Ukraine operate during the winter? Yes. Vladimirovich Kuznetsov, why don't you go fight for Ukraine in front lines? Because I'm not Ukrainian and I'm not a fighter. We've supported Ukraine for over 1.1 million in help to Ukrainian armed forces. We are doing great job for Ukraine from here. If Russia will invade my country, I will go enlist day one. That's my promise to you. So good effort, Vladimirovich Kuznetsov. Totally not troll at all. But we're doing a great job, and believe me, on this channel, with the help of my many good friends on this channel, we have helped slaughter many hundreds of orcs from your countrymen. I hope that makes you feel good. And we're gonna do even more. Danube, your limited freedom of speech, who is going to decide what is the truth, what's allowed, where is the line? That's a good question. I don't have the full answer for it, but it's like stating, okay, so we have like a cancer. It's a very complex cancer. You know, like if you just cut it out, it'll probably like cost you a life, right? So it's not an easy solution, but potentially we should start doing certain things. For example, like putting pressure, like, you know, like on X, these community posts, community notes, right? When there was a community that recognized that there was certain misinformation, that worked pretty well, remember? If you were on X, you know that it worked. It's only because now it's been totally taken over by Musk, and he has like basically forcefully twisted and turned that all the way that it's not useful anymore. But something like that could work. There is a possibility of things working, but just saying is like, well, if we just cannot cut it all in one piece, that means we should not fight it, in my perspective, is nonsensical. Did you, boss, any chances of second putsch happening? Putsch was nothing good, so just to make sure. Dan Army, why is? Good question. Maxim Palm, what could be the reason the Swedish Raider planes have not been released yet? It was known that US has blocked the delivery of these planes to Ukraine. Rhetoric, are you friends with Denis Davidov? No. Marina 4691, when Russia loses the war, could they change, like, for example, Germany did after the Second World War and Mauferl, and become good Western ally confronting the total threats like China? So, Marino, what is really interesting, like, and I recommend this for every viewer of this this show, read up on denazification of Germany. It's a fascinating story. Maybe find a YouTube documentary. It's absolutely fascinating. But long story short, the denazification of Germany did not work. It was complete failure. All of the money, all of the effort spent for nothing. Absolute disaster. So all of that work of trying to convince or shame or try to show up facts and so on to the previous Nazis or people that were living in a Nazi regime, in depths of their hearts, when they're actually quoted anonymously and so on, it turned out that they didn't change their perspectives at all, that they continue still believing that Hitler did nothing wrong. The actual realization of denazification happened only decades after. It happened when, after this media and history, essentially, it was written by allies, the actual truth about the horrors of Germany, when they came out, when those young generations, they looked at what their grandfathers, grandmothers did, and their grandmothers, grandfathers at their dinner table were stating that, you know, I was a part of the SS or something and so on. And then these younger generations, they told them, not cool, grandpa, not cool. So only after these new generation appeared, that's when the change of society happened. And I believe only like that can happen in Russia. The current Russian society cannot be changed. Only if Russia loses this war, absolutely devastatingly loses this war, Putin loses in every aspect possible, gets thrown out, new country arises. It will not guarantee that Russia will emerge as a new democratic and fair state. Nothing is forgiven. Russia has squandered the 1990s opportunity, and they instead got themselves a new Tsar. And they are now in full delusion about their glorious nation of Russia. Only by losing this war, they can finally maybe start reflecting. They finally can start maybe bringing on these tough questions, putting the history books that do not deny the existence of Ukraine, that do not deny the existence of the Baltic states or the states that surround Russia, that do not deny the fact that Russians are just another small population in a sea of different ethnicities that are populating Russia itself. Without all of that happening, there will never be that next generation that is going to start asking questions and saying, not cool, grandpa, not cool. When Russia loses the war, could they change? Okay, Dan Emmy, why is the world turning to the right? What is wrong with your planet voting against their own interest? This is not voting to the right. It's people that are dissatisfied with the status quo. They want change. And our politicians, as I said, in the center, have become too comfortable with doing nothing. They don't want to challenge the system. Right? The politicians from center do not wish to challenge the system. They hide behind the bureaucracy that has been established. They hide behind the apparatus. They hide behind the procedures with no spine to change it. Therefore, it's actually not just the right, it's also the left. People are swinging towards the right and the left equal ways. It's just there is this weird part in the middle that is swinging maybe either a little to the right or a little to the right left. Even in the elections in the United States, if you look at actual votes, it's almost 50-50. Like, we know Trump supposedly win by a big margin, but it's electoral college. When you look at actual vote count, it's literally 50-50. I believe it's like 3.5 million difference. So that's the important part. So no, I don't feel that the world is swinging to the right. I feel the world is swinging away from the career politicians. I feel the world is swinging towards change. Because the world is turbulent, because we are facing challenges, because the costs on our lives are accumulating, and our politicians are not willing to take radical steps to do something about it. Okay, how long I've been talking about this stuff? Let's see, it's been 1 minute 40, so let's do a bit more and then we're gonna wrap it up. Seeing how the Russian economy, oh wow, wow. Okay, it seems a lot of questions just disappears. Well, my Chrome just updated and all of the questions that have been asked have disappeared. So let's do it live. Let's just do it live. So guys, just write me questions in chat with @Ukraine Matters. Then the question gets highlighted for me, and I'm just gonna talk about something. Let's do like 5 questions and then wrap it up. Let's see. Neil Badger, just here to transport, to say the transport of Russian gas across Ukraine is going to be ending because the contract expires December. I think Russia asked Ukraine to renew the contract. Lol. Yes, exactly. Yes, you're right. Do you have any good states on POWs? Yes, Ukrainian POWs still being tortured in Russian captivity. Russia is killing a lot of Ukrainian POWs. Ukraine is constantly offering Russia to exchange POWs. Russia is not willing to do exchange. What is your relationship with Artur Rechi? We don't talk about this, but it's with the tongue. Marino 4691. Thanks for answering all the questions. It's very fun with the people here. Love the streams. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to heroes, my friend. Absolutely. Kevin Zebra, comment on Lavrov's recent 180 on using nukes. Yeah, that's the best part. It's well, we're gonna definitely be because like he had like his methods on like, whoa, we're gonna threaten everyone with nuking, and it's like when it's like, well, now it's about the time you promised to nuke. It's like, well, that like because you know Lavrov's 180 on nukes is exactly what's happening. What I was saying, and then people like in chat is like, no, Georgie. Russia totally gonna nuke us. It's like, no, they won't. No, they won't. Chris Ridd, how long it take for Ukraine to match Russia in terms of domestic missile production? Ooh, a while. Still a long while. I think missiles is still not even close. Mitch Ashdown, any more progress on your investing in Ukraine thing after January? Listen, I'm wrapping up with my primary job, right? So as you don't know, like for the last 2 years, I've been doing it as my secondary job here. I've been doing it as a sort of a hobby, so to say. And there's been like a lot of desire to do more, including the investments, including the programs, including the additional support, like trying to do like a lot more and do like massive stuff. And because I'm a capitalist, because I'm a business person, I would really want to do investment to Ukraine. But I'm gonna end up my job only by the end of December, and I'm gonna start working on it starting January. So I will update you on it from January. Be sure to follow me along on that. As a proud American and fake astronaut named Fuzz Baldwin, I have worked hard to earn the paycheck using our CGI skills, green screens, and ability to get paid. Good job, Stan. Alex C. In the last estimation, I read that 2025 Russia will run out of Soviet stockpiles. Important part that in 2025, by the end of 2025, it will run out on stockpiles, but the fact that the things are getting pulled from stockpiles doesn't mean that the things are out from the battlefield. Okay, so running off of stockpiles and running out on battlefield, two different things. Please be aware of that. Doesn't a military Baltic alliance make sense? Why there is NATO? Echo, should Europe cut the oil transport via Shadow Fleet? Yes. How can we persuade the bankers to give Ukraine 300 billions before Trump takes office? We can't. Because big money. Like it would like because there has been like a lot of politicians that have been paid by Russia. And we are not fighting corruption in Europe because apparently all the corruption is in Ukraine, right? But you cost me opinions on tonight's Romania presidential election being won by a pro-Russian independent in the primary election. This deciding vote will be 2 weeks from now. Well, that's what I said. Like the only thing that I knew about the Romanian election is that the supposedly far right didn't make it. And I don't know who else won. If it's pro-Russian independent, well, that's unfortunate. That's going to be problematic. We'll see when it's going to end up in a second round. My hopes are that it's not, but you know what to do. Like we are like look. Okay, real talk. That's it. Thank you so much for questions, guys. I will finish this with this real talk. Look, the world is not static, right? The world is not always how we want it to be. World consists of many different forces pulling in many different directions. It is possible, like there existed already a world with the Age of Empires run by kings, queens, dictators, authoritarian regimes that could dictate how do you live, that oppressed. We now live in a time where we enjoyed our prosperity for 70 years, where we had the most, in my perspective, the beautiful development on civilization at all. We saw how humanity strived for more. We developed new technologies. We conquered space. We conquered the planet in ways that we couldn't even imagine doing so around the 18th, 19th century. It was not even conceivable. Nothing states that we should stay in this state forever. There always can be something else. There always can be a world that is going to be dominated by fascist regimes. There always can be another genocidal maniac that will decide that people that are having their toe nails a bit more pink color are from the inferior race, therefore they need to be exterminated. All of that can happen. All of that world can be. And the point is that we do not know what the future holds for us. What I want to do on this channel with you, my friends here, is to set a vision for what world we would want to happen. Because I value democracy. I value the world that have been for the last 70 years. I would want my children, grandchildren, to have that world that I saw some remnants of, the world full of peace, prosperity, where borders inside of, for example, United Europe were eradicated, where we stopped fighting wars in Europe and we said no more. I want that world to be there and prosper. But there are forces that are working against that. There are forces that are stating, no, it's all about you. It's all about whether you want to be rich. It's about dog eat dog, and our country needs to act like it's dog eat dog. We need to fight for our place and so on. There is a lot of different visions, and those visions are competing. I cannot say which vision will win, so the only thing I can do is hope that these 3,000 people that are here with me, they will hear what I'm stating, they will agree with me, and then we'll work slowly but surely, continuously, to move towards that direction. It doesn't mean that we're going to reach it, but maybe, just maybe, we can do a small benefit, a small grain towards that. And at this moment, I feel the most important thing is for Ukraine to win. And that's exactly why I think Ukraine matters, because this is what defines the future of the world that I would want to live in and I would want my children to live in. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for staying here with me. I love you guys. Slava Ukraini. Trust in Ukrainian armed forces. And I'll see you next time.